Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Lee Cantor here with Stone Payton, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio.
All right, next up on Atlanta Business Radio, we have with us from Solar Energy USA /Net Zero. We'll get the full story on that in just a moment. Mr. Perry Bell. How you doing, Perry?
Stone, thank you guys for having me on.
We are delighted to have you. You've been very patient. I couldn't tell if you were taking notes or not because you got the iPad gizmo here, but you look like you were very attentive and we're getting something out of these last two conversations.
Yeah, I was taking a lot of notes. I really liked what both these guys had to say. Ken was getting to the point of things that you do basically with business. You want to make sure that you obviously deal with the metrics and you measure everything that you do. Steve was getting to the point of dealing with relationships and managing to the customers, and all those things were great topics.
So now you're in the solar energy business, is that correct?
That's correct. We're basically an energy company. What we do is we help people with energy reduction first, and then we work on energy production second.
Now, are you bullish on solar? Or you're energy agnostic?
I'm energy agnostic because basically the whole point of all of this is creating something that works for us as a country to begin with. We're built around helping small businesses become successful. And the main thing is we help other people get in business as a licensed business of our brand. But as far as the solutions go, we're kind of, I guess you would say, technology neutral because it really doesn't matter what the solution is. We want to make things more efficient and work better.
So what is the state of the art, state of the union with respect to solar and, for lack of a better word, alternative energy sources? Has it kind of peaked and now we're all settling down, or is there a great fervor? We're going to see another wave of trying to use algae to power our cars, or where are we headed with all this?
Well, there's a lot of different aspects to the business, but if you look at things, how centralized power is very difficult to work with. For example, it's our mainline energy. It's very important, and we all require that to exist. But we need to subsidize our consumption. For example, when you use power, the electrons came from possibly hydroelectric, they came from wind, they came from natural gas, they came from nuclear, they came from coal. So it's a blend of all those things as well. So why not throw something else in there that makes sense, like solar? The only unique thing about solar is none of us can be autonomous with nuclear. We can't build a nuclear facility in our yard. We can't do any of these other things. We can't do hydroelectric in our yard. One person may have the ability to harvest water in a stream that's running through your backyard, and especially like what we've had in the last couple of weeks here locally. But generally speaking, the solar is the only place that allows you to get autonomous. And, Ken even has the ability he's taken the steps to go create his own, I guess it's kind of off-grid, but it's a water system. And Ken, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I just dug a deeper well.
Yeah.
so I wouldn't have to connect. I have teenage daughters, and I was running out of water.
Yeah.
And had to dig a deeper well.
So what you did is you said, all right, well, here's a cost that's going to be that I don't want to be exposed to, so I'm going to go ahead and take care of this myself. And so you created that level of autonomy on your water side.
That's a driving force.
Yeah.
Isn't that the name of an old gospel song, Dig a Deeper Well?
Yeah.
And Driving Force is a metal song, I think.
Yeah.
So what's behind the name Net Zero?
Well, we're basically, we started out as a solar company exclusively, and as we got into the business and into the field, we understood what the real interest of the customer is. And the customer's interest is their best interest, they don't always know. So they're asking us for answers. So as we get in, basically they want to reduce their fixed costs. Now, power historically hasn't been so expensive that people have been motivated to reduce that. Now that power is becoming more and more expensive, it's becoming very challenging. And 10, 15 years ago, we weren't in competition as manufacturers against the rest of the world. Now we are. So whereas a manufacturer down the street is directly competing with manufacturers overseas, their costs are very important. And so that's why you got one person doing three people's jobs, because they've worked with reducing their costs on their labor side. They're always fighting for pennies on everything, even on the advertising side, marketing side, on procurement of product. And so now power is a big issue. And then power is becoming more and more costly to produce and to deliver, and where everybody's having to pay for it. So what's in our best interest as a country and as small businesses is to reduce our fixed costs in that level so that we can be competitive in the global market. So they look to us for answers. What do I do? Well, I can throw a solar system on your roof and reduce your power. Okay, well, that's good. But are there things I can do before then that make it make more sense? I can change out 4 2x4 fluorescent light fixtures and create the same energy reduction as I can production on a 1 kilowatt solar system. And that's a lot of words in that one sentence, but it means something. But it's a culmination of all those. And it's not too different from what Ken does on the marketing side. He doesn't just go after search engine optimization. He doesn't go after just social networking. It's a blend of all of these things that makes sense. So you have to create a plan, an action plan that makes sense for you as a business. And generally, we can help people do that. One solution isn't a one-size-fits-all, just like in some of these other businesses that we're talking to today.
So now the power is an interesting topic. It's kind of a little controversial in some area, but isn't there a Georgia Power initiative going through legislation now?
There are, but keep in mind, understand where the power companies are. If I were to give you a monopoly and then start to take that away from you, that would be difficult for you to pallet. And Georgia Power has a responsibility to deliver mainline power to everybody, and they've been granted this monopoly. But they have a lot of fixed costs involved with that, but they're guaranteed certain amount of percentages of profits. Me as a small business owner, and I'm not guaranteed any profits from anything, so I have to fight for everything that I get as a business owner.
Right.
And I have to build my business properly, and I have to be accountable for everything that I do. So my metrics are a little bit different than, say, somebody else's metrics, maybe. So, yeah, there are a lot of initiatives that are going on, but they have certain places that they get power from, and it makes sense, and they can count on that. So everything that they do when they bring in money as a company is for 20-year increments. So if they make an investment, they have to deal with this for 20 years. Power and technology is changing rapidly. So delivering power from a coal facility 40 miles away and then having those transmission lines deliver that power, and then at 12 o'clock at night when there's nowhere to deliver it to, dump the power, but we still have to pay for it as customers. Centralized power is tough to deal with. But keep in mind, it's not their first day. They've been making power for years and delivering for years. So they have their economies where they slow down the turbines in the evenings and whatnot, but you also have line transmission loss. So it's said that you lose anywhere from 30 to 40 to 50% of your power created through the transmission loss and delivery of power.
And it's just
on centralized power
and gone altogether?
There's nowhere to go.
There's
no storage of power.
Right?
Yeah. So, but keep in mind, but it's not something that's just some arbitrary thing that happens differently every day. I mean, they know exactly how much power they're having to deliver, and they're basically power companies, and power facilities are built for July and August, which is peak demand. So that facilities, the creation has to be for that. So what happens the rest of the year? Well, they have to slow down production, and there's fixed costs and everything that goes with that. And the power companies are not the bad guy. I mean, they're doing what they have to do to deliver power to us. We just all have to pay for it. But is there a better way? It's like anything else. Just what worked 100 years ago may not be the best solution now. So is it better to have less decentralized power delivery?
So
maybe.
Tell us about your client base. Is it all over the map, or are there a couple of verticals that just really lend themselves to working with you?
Yeah, our main client base is going to be more on the commercial side because they're paying attention to their fixed costs on the electrical side. We do have a residential division, and we have that in multiple states, but commercial is the main side. So what happens is we'll go out to groups that are consciously trying to reduce their power, and it's on their agenda, and then we help them achieve that goal.
Now, are some of your clients kind of trying to make an environmental impact as well?
Well, I mean that's a good flag to wave, but if it doesn't make sense financially, then nobody's really taking that approach. I say nobody, but even the people like the bigger box stores that are waving that flag, it's a financial thing that they're doing. It makes
so it has
sense
to make financial sense.
Yes,
and then if it makes environmental sense, that's a bonus.
Yes.
This is where I get to say that all of our programming is dolphin safe and gluten free,
right?
And has been from day one. This is not some new fad thing we're implementing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me about like electric cars. You're seeing like hybrids and electric cars pop up more now. Is Are they really environmentally friendly, or is it a good move for a typical individual to go that route?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of debates on that side, but I mean, most of the debates are people who don't have one. I actually have, I have a hybrid. I have and I have a hybrid electric, and then we have an electric car as well as a company.
You have a sole electric car?
Yes,
Sweet.
So if you run out of power, you're just
I'd be on the side of the road
paperweight,
hitching a ride.
right?
Well, I mean, it's no different than gas. I mean, I know how long I can go before I need to put fuel in my car, so I never just.
But aren't there
ignore that.
variables, like if it's hotter or colder outside, that can impact how long the battery life is?
Yeah, but there's a lot of communication on there that's telling you how much power you have. So, but I mean, total electric cars are a different scenario. Plug-in hybrids are pretty unique. But when you look at electric cars and look at electricity in general, if I'm pulling oil out of the ground in the Middle East, I'm putting it on a boat, and then I'm bringing it to a refinery, and then I'm putting it in a tanker to deliver to a gas station, and then I put that fuel in my car, and then I use it. There's a lot of there's a lot of impact in doing that.
Sure.
And then the other side is if I plug into the wall, I've got coal, nuclear, hydro, and all those things that I've created to create these electrons to charge this battery. So what's the difference between the two? Well, the truth of the matter is plugging into the wall is probably, it is less environmentally impactful than the other. But that's not the big deal. The big deal, that's where solar comes into play. Solar comes into play where you can take your consumption of electricity and offset that. So there's a certain amount of kilowatt hours that a car is going to use per mile. It's usually 1 kilowatt hour per mile. 1 kilowatt hour per 4 miles. So that's about 3 cents a mile on an electric car. But I can create that with solar, and without incentives or anything, I can have my solar system paid for in basically 2.5 years, and then I have my fuel source for free. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not paying the power company. I'm not doing any of those things. And so now I've got my fuel source for free. Now, you're offsetting that consumption. So I may plug in at night, but I'm creating the power in the day, and I'm running my meter backwards, so to speak, in the daytime. But at night, I'm plugging in, and I'm reclaiming that energy that I created.
So the solar would be used primarily just to fuel the car and not anything other than that? Or could you use it in your house? You could use it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be used for anything, obviously. So, yeah, when you put solar on any object to create energy, you're offsetting your consumption that you're using. If you're not using it, you're pushing it back out to the grid.
Are you seeing commercial companies going for that? Or is that a hard argument to make?
On the electric car side, or just solar
like
in general?
Now you have solar, now you can use it for your fleet. Is that really happening, or we're just too early on for that?
I don't see it happening a whole lot. I see it happening with individuals.
Individuals.
Yeah, and we as a company do it. We create more energy. We're a net zero company. We have basically a 10,000 square foot building, and we have enough solar on our building to accommodate our 15 employees and our warehousing and all of those things. So we create more energy than we use, and we have a car charging station outside, so we use our extra energy for the car charging. So we still walk away with a zero power bill.
So how do you get to have a conversation like this with your commercial people that you want to be serving? Do you do some of this magic that Robbins was talking about earlier?
How do I reach them?
Yeah, how do you reach them and just get because it occurs to me, if you can sit down and have this level of conversation with someone who's owns these buildings or that kind of thing, then it's probably going to build a pretty strong relationship, and they'll probably do work with. I just wonder how you break through all the clutter and get to have this level of conversation.
Well, that's a good point. And to like everybody's saying, they're going to find you somehow, and then you got to find them. So we have an outbound effort and we have an inbound effort. So people reach out to us and find us online. We do have a pretty decent organic presence, and we have a pretty decent marketing program. It's not as complex as what Ken approaches, but we do have social networking. We do have our organic side.
So you're doing all this stuff.
We have to. I mean, that's a validation of who you are, because most people that are coming to you aren't just looking you up in the phone book and comparing you to the next guy. They need to be educated. So a lot of our information online is to help people get educated and understand what they don't know so they can understand what they want to know.
I'll tell you what, if you ever do have an unhappy customer, I'd route them to Brian. Don't you think you could? Did you hear him talking about how to handle an unhappy customer? He was great, right? Absolutely. He reminds me a lot of my brother, and my brother does great with that. And it's just basically helping people. Ultimately, people want something, and as a business, you want to help them get what they want. And it's as simple as that. And if you can deliver that and have a relationship with somebody, it's not just selling them a product and going away. It's having a relationship. And for us, no matter what the size is, there's usually going to be some other ancillary type
relationship things that we're going to deal with. So a lot of times on the commercial side, we're doing a lot of school systems, municipalities. We deal a lot in the private sector as well, where we're changing out lights. So we can get a big pickup in fixed costs by reducing the wattage that people are consuming on the lighting side. So you start with that because that's the low-hanging fruit, so to speak.
That's the typical point of entry for you guys?
It is, absolutely.
So you kind of identify some light issue that they might have, that you have a solution that you can fairly simply fix and make an impact?
Yeah, and your impact's going to have is pretty broad. You can go in and lower the wattage, of course, by delamping, but you're delivering full spectrum light. You're improving the light system that they have, and
lowering their electric
bill, which is easily quantifiable.
Right.
I'm just fascinated because this is your baby, right? I mean, you built this thing from the ground up. You're absolutely to be committed, and I can't imagine some of the trials and tribulations you must have had along the way. That probably would make for another segment sometime, but how does it feel to kind of have arrived at least where you are now? It must feel really good.
It does, but I mean, we've grown so rapidly over the, getting into our fourth year, that you're always going to have your challenges, but it's always exciting. So, but it feels great, but at the same time, you never are taking that approach. You're saying, all right, here's where we need to be. So, I ought to sit back and drink a beer one day and say, we've actually done pretty good.
But so lighting and windows, are those the two low-hanging fruit?
Well, on commercial, you're not dealing with thermal improvement. If you're dealing with residential, thermal improvement's great. You can do windows, spray foam insulation, any other types of insulation, lighting, and stuff like that. And
I have one of those Nest thermostats. What do you think of those?
I think they're great. I mean, it's just like, that's what I need. And I've got spray foam windows, solar thermal. I've got it all, but I don't have one of those, and I need that because I'm always having to go turn it back on. So,
I can do it on my phone.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Well, I just love trying to help people get the word out about this kind of work. This is good stuff. This is fantastic. Thanks for coming and visiting with us, man.
Thanks for having me. I think we ought to do like a debate version with a radio name like Stone. It seems like there would be some type of conflict.
Like a pointer count.
Yeah.
Point counterpoint. That's what I'm trying to remember from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's the website if somebody want to learn more?
Well, it's netzerousaindustry.com, and that's for the commercial side. And if you just want to learn about solar in general, go to solarenergy-usa.com.
And what if they want to drive your electric car? What do they have there?
They come, and that's funny because at our office we have a charging station, and we don't charge people to charge up. So every time we look outside and we see
like,
leaves.
Who's that? Like
we don't know.
What's the electric car you own?
We own a Volt, and we own a Leaf, and we also own a hybrid, basically a Ford Fusion hybrid. So we have all those things.
Well, thanks again for coming in, man.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a pleasure meeting the guys here as well. It's funny because I think you guys just attract good business because when you're listening to Steve talk and even probably Kevin as well and Ken, it's cool to hear how people deal with customers because you can't have a good business if you're not doing the right things.